It was in this area of remote valleys and densely wooded hillsides, between the months of June and September, that the men of the 1st Special Air Service Regiment joined with the groups of French resistance to thwart the activities of the German occupation. My brother Arthur Dray was a Lance Corporal with the 1st Special Air Service that were parachuted into the Morvan on the 21st of June 1944. The story of the actions of my brother Arp, we called him Arp, with abbreviation for Arthur, while he was with the SAS in the Morvan, is recorded in a book by the commanding officer, Ian Wellstead. The book is called The SAS with the Maquis. It had always been a cherished ambition of mine to go to the Morvan where my brother had been. When it was suggested to me by a couple of my nephews, Michael and John, that they also were interested in it, and how about making a party up and going, I was all for it. And so we set off for Morvan in April 2006. And this film is a record of my journey of discovery to the places where the SAS and Maquis operated in the Morvan, and a tribute to the courage of both the French and the British during those months of June to September 1944. The German army was deeply entrenched in the Morvan, with a garrison at Château-Chinon and a local headquarters at Montsouche. This area was strategically important because here major railway lines, which crossed from the north to the south and east and west, were carrying supplies and men to and from the German front, attempting to hold the line against the Allied invasion of Normandy, which had begun on 6th of June 1944. An advance party led by Ian Wellstead had been dropped sometime previously to get things organised and arranged for the reception of the main body of Special Air Service people coming over. But unfortunately their radios were finding it difficult to contact London to ascertain the exact date they would be landing. However, there was a special operations agent in the area, and it was arranged that they would meet him at a rendezvous near Verdun, and on a certain date. Unfortunately, when Wellstead was there the first time, no one arrived, and for several nights no one arrived, and Wellstead was beginning to give up hope of ever seeing the main body arrive. However, a message had been received via the local Maquis who they operate in with, that in fact the main body of SAS chaps would be dropped on the 21st of June. With a little help from the people in the village bar at on Morvan, we managed to locate the bridge over the Cour, and from there we were able to identify the drop-in zone on the hill above Verdun. It was here, in complete darkness, over unknown territory and with the risk of an enemy attack at any moment, that Arp and his troop parachuted from a Sterling bomber. Most of the men landed safely, but Chalky White, Sergeant Chalky White, who had already won the Distinguished Conduct Medal and the Military Medal, seriously injured his back. As was normal in these drops in these far scattered places, arms, men, even jeeps came down from the aircraft, and the aircraft couldn't keep circling to make second runs, so they had to drop them as they came over, and as a consequence arms and men were scattered over a wide area. And to get them together, the resourceful Maquis and local farmers, using bullock carts and whatever, hand trucks and so forth, spread out, gathered most of them in and brought them back safely into the ready prepared camp that Wellstead had prepared for them. Arp probably with one or two others, and guided by the Maquis, almost certainly made his way down this lane into Verdun, carrying his parachute and basic kit. From here, using an old bus commandeered by the Maquis, the troops were taken to their camp in the Bois de Maquis. Although nothing remains of the SAS camp except this sign, it was from here that Arp and his comrades set out on their various actions against the Germans. Each Maquis group had a pseudonym, and the group with which the SAS primarily worked were the Maquis Bernard. They were also established in this wood in timber huts, but also in a more substantial building, part of which still remains. We found this little cabin here. It looks fairly substantially well built, but it had time, and you can see by the point in it's fairly rough, and probably this was perhaps Bernard himself was in here. This was his little cabin. Inside it's very dark, we can't film inside for you, but I can assure you there's a little wood burning stove in there. Right, we've come around the back of the little cabin. Inside, I told you there was a wood burning stove, and the pipe went upwards out of the stove itself, but it comes out at an angle. There's a little pipe underneath which I imagine sucks in air to help draw the fire. But we three have had a chat, and perhaps we're right, perhaps we're wrong, and we think we might be right. The pipe comes out like this, and instead of the smoke going straight up to heaven where Germans reconnaissance planes could well see it comes down here, and perhaps there was a heap of brushwood or something that dispersed the smoke. Therefore it was an aid to dispersing of smoke without being seen by the enemy. Just here, you would note, there's a small window, and it looks much like the fire slot that's in a bunker, a blockhouse would be. And that's another thing that they thought of. You see, wouldn't let a lot of light in, but it wouldn't let a lot of bullets and stuff come in if the enemy was firing at them, and they in turn could return fire, because it's built at an angle each side, just like a bunker, like a concrete blockhouse. So that window is small and perhaps long for a given reason, a good reason, to protect the inhabitants from inside.